Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order on Wednesday, November 12th. Like always, going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the reading of our mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing a rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If there is any, I don't see anyone in the room for public comment, unless Rosie wants to speak. Is there anyone on Zoom or remote that wishes to speak for public comment?
No.
All right, seeing no one for public comment, we are going to close public comment for tonight. Next item on the agenda is our Student Advisory Council, and I see two students that are with us tonight. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hi, thank you.
So do you have anything to report?
For academics, grades closed last Friday, November 7th. Grades will be published in Power School on Wednesday, November 20th in late afternoon. WMNHS will be holding fall conferences on Thursday, November 20th from 6 to 8 and Friday, November 21st from 12 to 2:20. Conferences will be scheduled virtually unless a parent or teacher requests to meet in person. Principal McLeod shared links to sign up for conferences in her update earlier this week.
Hi, Ms. Maya. Other events that are happening at the school at the moment is this Friday, the upcoming Friday, November 14th, is Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. And all students and staff are invited to wear purple in support. And the High School Student Council will be teaming up with the DECA Store and Recycling Club to host a school-wide field drive for November 17th to the 21st. And students can bring donations to their homerooms. Those are all the updates for
Great. Thank you very much. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for our students? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, and I believe we have a motion.
Move the school committee approve the minutes of the October 28th, 2025 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the October 27th, 2025 Policy and Communications Subcommittee meeting.
Second. All right, the motion has been seconded. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, the approval of the minutes are unanimously passed. Next item on the agenda are budget items. Do we have someone to?
Christine's at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not. Why are you down there? You're never down there. I'm sorry, Christine. My bad.
That's okay. Good evening, everyone. Tonight you have the financial packet in front of you through October 31st of 2025. As you can see, our available balance is just over 7.8% remaining. We've encumbered all of our salaries. We still have a couple of positions on the website to fill, and we're still encumbering our non-salary lines. Then we can look at the grants. Our grants have been submitted to DESE. We have the actual numbers, but we're waiting for the final confirmation of those numbers. As I've talked before, those numbers have been reduced by about $60,000 over fiscal 25. We're going to make up those differences from the local budget. We're going to be thoughtful about what those expenditures are going to be, particularly with the SPED IDEA grant, which I think Rosie's going to talk about tonight. But that typically covers about 30 paraprofessionals. The next line is our revolving accounts. As you can see, they continue to be reduced month over month. Circuit breaker, which is not a revolving account but a special revenue account, we've received our first payment, our first quarter. So we have 3 more to go for this fiscal year. But we were fortunate to receive just over $2 million in circuit breaker for this year. Does anyone have any questions? Great, we'll move on to the payrolls for October. We had 2 payrolls, and I believe we have a motion.
Move that the school committee approve payroll warrants number 16 and number 18 as presented.
Okay, motion has been seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, motion unanimously passes.
And we don't have any gifts tonight, so that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. Next item on the agenda is our superintendent's remarks. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take my items out of order with your permission.
Of course.
I'd like to welcome Rosie Galvin, our Director of Special Education, up to give an update on special education.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Okay, great. Do I control it from here? Yes, I do. Okay. So just an overview of the agenda for today. I wanted to give just some overview of statistics district-wide in terms of special education numbers briefly. I'll talk a little bit about programs. You've seen that kind of vertical alignment program visual before, so I'll touch upon just some highlights instead of going into every program like I have in the past. And then in terms of some updates for this year, I want to touch upon a program evaluation that we're collaborating with SEAM Collaborative on. And then also we're undergoing our integrated monitoring review for special education right now through DESE as well. So those are just some things I'll highlight. And I'll end with touching upon CPAC and answering any questions that you might have about these items. So just a higher level overview, currently we have about 20% of our student body as students who are eligible for special education on IEPs. This is in-district students, so about 660 students total. I gave a look back at the last 5 years just to see in comparison to state averages as well, where we remain pretty consistent with state averages. As you can see, it's just under what it is at the state level in each of these years. I also put placements on here. I know that I've spoken about this before, but this is just an overview of the different placement options that students might be in within special education in district. So about 80% of our students on IEPs are in a full inclusion program, meaning that at least 80% of their day is with general education peers. We have about 15% of our students who, based on team meetings, teams have determined that they are in a partial inclusion setting, which means that they're with gen ed peers between 60 and 79% of the time, and then a smaller subset of students who are in substantially separate programs, meaning that they're with special education peers for more than 60% of their day. I'll touch upon this a little bit more when I go into programs and give an overview of that. Just wanted to kind of frame the different types of settings and placements that students may be in. And then I listed here our most common disability categories as well.
Rosie, before you leave this slide, if I can just point out,
Sure.
if you could just kind of clarify, 80% full inclusion, that's 80% of the 660 students. It's not 80% of our students.
Yeah, I can further clarify that. So that's 80% of their day. So basically, when you have an IEP meeting, you determine the services that a student might need in order to have access to their education. So they might have, for example, some students might require counseling services outside of the general education setting. Some students might require some pull-out services with the special education teacher for a portion of their day. So that 80% means of their entire school day, how often are they with general ed peers? So 80% of those students are with gen ed peers at least 80% of the time.
So of those 660
Of those 660
yes,
students,
I just wanted to
80%,
be
yes,
clear on that.
exactly. And it is 80% of their day too, so
Got it.
that might be confusing. Any other questions about this slide? Okay. All right. Like I said before, this is just a highlight of the programs, particularly at the elementary level, where they vary by building, as opposed to the middle school and high school, where that would be within the same building. And I know I've gone over these more in depth before, so I'll just kind of give a general overview and maybe some changes that we've seen compared to years past. So we have 5 different programs district-wide, and these are really students that would fall into, like on that previous slide, either the partial inclusion or the substantially separate placement options. The rest of the students, the 80% of those 660, as Doug said, are really in a full inclusion program. So they're with gen ed peers for most of their day. They might receive some services outside of the gen ed classroom, but they wouldn't necessarily fall into one of these 5 programs listed. So we have the Compass program at Woodville, which is a substantially separate model for students who really require their core academics with a special ed teacher and special education peers in a smaller group setting. And they have inclusion opportunities as well. All of these are, of course, individualized. This is kind of more general program descriptions for most of the students who are within the program. Also at Woodville this year, we have the therapeutic program that's been at Woodville for a while, but we also added the Strive program at Woodville this year as well, which is a change that we've seen from the past. So our Strive program is our program for students with autism who require most of their day in a substantially separate setting with direct instruction from a special ed teacher. We've historically had 2 classrooms within the Strive program at the Dolbear Elementary School. And there was a lot of work that Shannon Blacker did along with myself and the special ed coordinators to really look at, we had a high cohort of students at Doyle last year. We had 6 pre-K students who were all moving up to kindergarten this year. And so because of those high numbers, instead of adding them to the program at Dolbear, that was already kind of bursting at the seams, and we really wanted to make sure that we were prioritizing students going to their home schools as well. We made the decision to open up a new Strive classroom at the Woodville School this year. We have a new great teacher named Julia, who's the lead teacher within that program. And so we have the pre-K students from last year. We have 6 kindergartners, all at the same grade level, who are in that Woodville program this year, which is really nice. And we still have the program at Dolbear as well with another new teacher, Jackie. So we're really excited about the changes that we've made within that program, really being able to keep students within their home school, keep cohorts a little bit smaller. And a lot of these students come with related services that they require, like speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy. Instead of having, those 1 providers at Dolbear, we're able to kind of distribute that load more evenly between the 2 schools as well. So that's one change specific to the Strive program this year in terms of placement and school options. We have the Integrated Care and Learning program at Dolbear also, which is a substantially separate program, again, with students who require their core academics with a special education teacher in a small group setting and some purposeful inclusion opportunities. And as I'm sure you've heard before, we have our language-based program at Greenwood that's been long-standing there, and I touched upon our therapeutic program at Woodville as well. So like I said, we have these programs at all the subsequent levels. I just wanted to highlight the elementary levels because they vary by school, and there were some changes specific to the elementary level compared to last year.
Can I ask a question on this?
Sure.
I'm just looking at it from just a holistic view, and it just looks like we're leaning a bit into the Woodville School in terms of the amount of programming that they have there. And I know they're also sort of helping out with the pre-K sort of overload that we have from the Doyle. No doubt they wouldn't be there if it couldn't be supported, but are there physical limitations to the spaces themselves that sort of lean, one school to carrying more sort of the load than another? Can you kind of talk to that? Because it seems like we're light on some schools and heavy on some other schools, and maybe just why our distribution works out that way.
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. It's something we've been talking about as well. I think obviously the reality of space constraints, I think you hit that. That's accurate. I think also just wanting to keep students in their home schools, like I had spoken about before. Obviously, the vast majority of students are, dedicated to either Dolbear or to Woodville, and that's really why we made the decision to, and because we had the space at Woodville, to open up that Strive classroom there and allow those students to stay within their home school setting. Yeah, I think we always look at staffing within the buildings as well to ensure that we're not overloading, especially related service providers who, like I said, a lot of the students require related therapy. So in many instances, we might contract out with an agency in order to support the overload or overflow for students who might require therapy. So for example, at Woodville, we have a contracted PT provider right now servicing some of the students, not just in programs, but also other students who might require those services who aren't part of a program. We also have a contracted person for speech and language as well. So we're really trying to evaluate the needs and placing students, when in their home schools when appropriate, And also just knowing, space constraints, especially at the smaller schools where it might be really hard to find the space just realistically in order to open up a program. And then I think it takes students away from their home schools more often, thinking about siblings that they might have, either older or younger as well. So those are definitely things that we're thinking about. But I can see, yes, of course, they have more programs than the others. But it's something we're continually evaluating, ensuring that we kind of have the staffing, whether it's contracted or internal, in order to support these students well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about programs? Okay. As I've spoken about before, these programs we're continually evaluating, what the programs look like, the curriculum within the programs, and so I can touch upon an initiative that we have started this year in terms of a program evaluation. So. We, of course, are part of SEAM Collaborative, which I know you guys know, and they offer a variety of services to districts, including professional development that we might contract with them in for. As I had just mentioned, we can contract with them for related therapists to come support our schools. Maybe social workers if we need support with this particular case. SEAM has a lot of options that they have available to us to support us, in addition to having collaborative schools that we might send students to in terms of an out-of-district placement. And SEAM is really trying to get into the realm of doing program evaluations. And so we're working collaboratively with them this year because it's an area that we want to dig more into as well, in terms of them coming in and helping us to evaluate our programs to continually improve on what we're doing within each of these spaces. So myself, Doug, Kara, and Shannon met with folks from SEAM last month to really plan out what this could look like. And we determined that we wanted to focus on 2 programs this year. So the Strive program and our language-based program as well. So this is pre-K. We don't have language-based at the pre-K level, but we do have a Strive program at the pre-K level all the way through the high school. And so we really worked collaboratively with them to define what we wanted out of these program evaluations. And so as you can see, really the purpose is we want to rely on their experts that they're going to be, contracting with or who are already part of SEAM Collaborative to come and help us to identify the strengths and challenges within each of our programs. And this will really help us to guide long-term planning. I often think about it in terms of the work Kara does with curriculum coordinators and how we have a cycle of curriculum reviews and evaluations within each of our content areas, and how we really need to start doing this within special education as well, and having a really concrete system where we say, okay, every 2 years we're going to evaluate these programs. We have a system in order to do that. So we're really excited about the work that we're going to be starting with SEAM, and hopefully that this kind of adventure together will help us to kind of create a model for future program evaluations as well. So in terms of what this will look like I said, we met last month to kind of talk about the scope of what we're hoping to see from this evaluation and what it would entail. And then I actually have an interview tomorrow morning with people from SEAM to kind of start to give an overview of our programs, which we've done a little bit already. And then they're going to be doing a variety of observations within each of these programs district-wide. They'll be looking at data that we have, student schedules. They'll really be digging into all aspects of both of these programs. And then at the end, they'll be able to produce a report for us. They'll do interviews with teachers within the programs, related service providers, principals, coordinators, to really get a good sense of what these programs currently entail and to help us to identify, like I said, our strengths within the programs and our areas in which we can grow. So January and February will be more interviews with people and doing these classroom observations. And then in March, they'll prepare a report. And then around April, we'll have that final report, which I'm sure we'd be happy to share with you guys any findings that we come from that.
Can I add there? Mm-hmm. So this evaluation process is a collaborative pilot. It's a kind of a venture that we're doing this year with SEAM Collaborative, trying to use their expertise to assess our programs, to really think about what we do and how we do it. But I think we've been very thoughtful and intentional about really thinking about in doing this well and making it part of our work is to learn by doing, right? And so having a third party come in, interview our personnel to talk about them. Like, what is your work like? What does it feel like with kids? What are your ratios? What are your class sizes? What do you feel like you're working on this year? And to really to dig into not just the technical aspects of this work, but also the qualitative aspects of getting different perspectives and how we can learn from people that are in the ranks. And so this is a unique pilot that I think has a really nice potential, and we will be reporting back after we complete this process, and maybe when we come back, it might be helpful to bring some teachers that were involved in the process as well, to get their perspective and just to kind of share kind of, again, what we're doing, what we're learning, and what this might look like as we move into both the spring and the fall next year.
Thank you. Right, and then Phil, okay.
Melissa?
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
It looks like you are pretty comprehensive in who you're interviewing in terms of staff and folks from the district. I'm just wondering if you guys had considered talking to families and students as part of this, or if that's kind of on the back burner until you get more of a feel for what this is going to look like.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have CPAC involvement as well, so we plan to have them be part of the interview process. And yeah, I think that, when I have my conversation with SEAM tomorrow as kind of the first interview, I think that I'll talk more about that and seeing, I think student perspective and family perspective will be really important in the process. So I definitely envision that will be something we would incorporate.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Right. And then the last thing I just wanted to touch on was informing you guys that we are up for our DESE Integrated Monitoring Review. So basically, DESE reviews districts every 3 years on a set of standards. So there's universal standards that are the core standards every district who's going through this review would have to give information on. And then there's also focused standards that are kind of more specific standards for that they might add on based on data that they're seeing, trends and outcomes. We have not been identified for any additional focus standards. So what we're going through right now is the universal standards that you see here. And every 3 years you rotate. So you're either Group A 1 year, and then 3 years later you're Group B. This year we are Group B. So in the 2022-23 school year, we had to give a review of all of the standards related to Group A, which I'm happy to share about if anyone would like to know the outcome of that integrated monitoring review. But for right now, I'll just focus on Group B since that's the one that we're starting right now. And as you can see here, it's really focus areas that include staff, professional licensure, licensure of folks that we have as contracted providers that are coming in, our professional development, our monitoring of IEP plans. There's various kind of special education standards that they're looking for our policies and procedures on that we submit to them. And then there'll also be, I think this is on the next slide. Yeah, this is just a little bit more about the process and the timeline. So we did have to submit, like I just said, all the documentation in October last month. And we're entering now the engagement phase where we'll incorporate some site visits. They're going to be touring the 2 larger elementary schools and Galvin, the high school, and Post also. And so on part of those days, which next Tuesday is the on-site visit day, they'll be interviewing some people that the DESE chairperson has determined they would like to speak with, in addition to myself. And then next Thursday and Friday will be other virtual interviews as well. So it's a pretty robust kind of in-person visit in addition to interviews that will be happening all next week. And then throughout the winter will be the report and follow-up. So they'll issue findings and we'll work with them. It's either the CAP is a corrective action plan, and then the other one is a continuous improvement and monitoring plan. So essentially DESE has 2 tiers of districts that either fall into Tier 1, districts in Tier 1 and Tier 2 are kind of identified as lower to moderate risk, like I said, in terms of data, in terms of student outcomes, in terms of previous findings based on integrated monitoring review cycles. And for districts who are in Tiers 1 or 2, they would, based on the outcomes of the evaluation, they would do a continuous improvement and monitoring plan. We are part of the continuous improvement and monitoring plan, as opposed to districts in Tier 3 or 4, who they kind of have, a greater risk of compliance issues. It's kind of more heavy-handed kind of focus from DESE in terms of the corrections associated with that. So that will happen throughout the winter, and we'll take the information from the findings and kind of incorporate that into our future practice. So that's just what we're going through right now. There'll be more happening, like I said, next week, and then we'll have more information to share after we get the final report in January.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, happy to answer questions. The last thing I want to do is highlight
I'm sorry.
CPAC. No, you're good. It is the end. Is to highlight CPAC. Just like to end with a shout out to them. Thank you, Alex, for being the school committee member. The rep, we've had a lot of Zoom meetings so far. We've had 2 events. We had a meet and greet virtually with myself and Shannon and the coordinators on October 8th. They just had a business meeting the other week. And as you can see on here, it's just some examples of former events that they've held and that they're planning to hold for the rest of this school year. And I just wanted to include also the names of the CPAC leaders and their email address. So if any families who are watching, they're a really great resource, and they have a lot of events that they do. So just be on the lookout for that too. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sorry about that. Does anyone have any questions for Rosie? All right.
Just one
Kevin.
really quick question, Rosie. So you're starting the review, the pilot program, with those 2 in particular programs to be looking at. If it goes well, do you envision utilizing this process for the remaining programs, or what's your thoughts there?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we're hoping to kind of create a model that we can use for all the other programs that we have. And like I mentioned, I'd love to kind of have a cycle where we say whatever frequency, maybe it's every 3 years, we're formally reviewing each program. And so this I think will be a good opportunity, like Doug said, to kind of work with SEAM on this pilot initiative to really help us refine what that process should be for all program evaluations moving forward. And then I'm sure we'll identify others to do and have kind of a cycle of consistent review. Yeah.
Do you know what most districts do? What kind of cycle?
Yeah, I think it varies. I think part of this actually, the integrated monitoring review is to give proof that you're doing these formal program evaluations. So if someone had asked about kind of anticipated areas of growth, I think that's one that we're already working towards identifying. And theirs is every 2 years, not every program every 2 years, but that you're evaluating at least a program every 2 years.
So I can add to your question, or add to answer your question. What a lot of districts do is they'll hire a third-party vendor that will come in with kind of a canned assessment, and they just pound the material, right? They review IEPs, they review like caseloads, they review outcomes, they kind of do surveys, and then they leave, they write a report, and they're done. This is something different, right? This is digging a little bit deeper and taking more time to do work with the practitioners that are in the ranks. And this is a plus for a potential positive for SEAM Collaborative, because they have an interest in kind of having a partner district to learn and to do this well, right? So it's like learning by doing. So for us to do this, to have a third party come in, first of all, it's very, very expensive to get into these spaces. When I say it's very expensive, we're doing this in a very fiscally responsible or fiscally prudent way, because we're helping SEAM develop as we're getting feedback on our programs.
So it's a pilot for SEAM as well.
So it's a pilot for SEAM as well, Kevin, right?
Yeah.
So they will, in turn, I think, continue to give us a different kind of rate than they might charge if they went out to their either collaborative districts, or to go out and to kind of provide this resource for any of the surrounding districts. So, but I feel like this is one of the benefits of developing something from the beginning, right?
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Rosie.
Are there any other questions on the committee? All right, thank you very much
Yeah, thanks for
for
your
the
time,
presentation.
Thank you, Rosie. Appreciate it. And thanks for coming in person.
Yeah, no problem. Good to see everyone.
Ian, next up is the DCAP. So I'm going to do the introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kara. The District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, also known as the DCAP, is a plan, it's a document that guides accommodation work in classrooms, in regular education classrooms. They are supports that should be put in place if students are struggling. They're regular ed accommodations that are good teaching practices that all districts should be practicing, right? And so, and the DCAP is often a plan that's developed, but if you don't have if you don't revisit it regularly, or if you don't kind of make the connection, are we doing what we are saying in this plan that we're doing, it can often become something that you develop for, something that if you have an audit from DESE, Rosie's referring to two audits, right? So the DESE would come in and they would say, do you have a DCAP? Yes, we do. We could show it to somebody in a binder. They say, great. But the real kind of value here is supporting the work that's specified in the document, and it's also required by law, right? So, and these accommodations that are spelled out in the plan are really just very solid, good teaching practices, and can make kind of teaching and learning accessible to kind of more students in a regular ed setting. And so that's kind of the intro. And so I can turn it over to Kara at this point.
Yeah, so Doug covered a lot in terms of what the DCAP is. We've been trying to get this kind of finalized for a little bit of time now. We had our original DCAP meeting was like March 7th to 2020. And so it didn't really go farther than that first meeting because everything shut down after that. So we had intentions back then to just get this up and running and revised, because Wakefield had a DCAP, but we just felt like it wasn't really reflective of what was happening in our classrooms. It wasn't as updated as we'd like. So we came back to this, as the dust settled, and we pulled a group back together who had originally worked on it, and we had a smaller group work together, a combination of curriculum coordinators, psychologists, administrators, and then what we did was we did the best we could to update it, and then we had people kind of deploy to different faculty meetings and get feedback. So this final version that we'll talk about tonight was it was finalized last December, and we just wanted to bring it to your attention because we've already started the year with some professional development on it, just trying to, like Doug said, keep it alive, not have it just be a document, on the shelf that doesn't get looked at. So I'll just kind of, we wanted this slideshow for you just to be informative before the meeting. I won't go through every part. Doug just spoke to this part of Mass General Law, every district's to have one, to really reflect the opportunities for all of our students to be successful in the general ed classroom, that they should have entitlements to that. It's really meant to serve as a tool to guide principals and teachers. If you had a chance to look through our DCAP, which is linked at the end of this, I'm not going to go through it page by page on the slides, but we really tried to capture what we're already doing, kind of what we have intentionally done in terms of curriculum resources, professional development, instructional practices, things that have built-in accommodations for students. And a lot of our decision-making around curriculum review has to make our curriculum resources as accessible as possible to as many students as possible. So we tried to reflect a lot of that, and also the supports that are available to all of our students by level. I feel like Doug already talked about this, just that we have a DCAP just to make sure that, students don't feel like they have to have an IEP or a 504 to get what they need. We also have talked about this in past meetings too. The DCAP and our multi-tiered system of support kind of go hand in hand. Again, the things that we're doing, universal design for learning is professional development. We have had as a focus area just kind of that idea of what's good for one is usually good for all. What can we do to make our classrooms as accessible as possible? And we've talked in the past too about Tier 1 being our general education support, what we offer to all of our students. Tier 2 is some more specialized or some more intensive support for students that may need it. You'll see a lot of that in our WIN blocks, our literacy skills, math skills blocks. And then Tier 3 is even more intense support, at times special education and 504s as well. This is, again, I'm putting slides up here that were also put out to our staff just so you can see the messaging without moving too quickly. We felt like it was really important. People get kind of stuck on the word accommodation and that is strictly related to special education, which it's not. So we tried to really tease that out, that accommodations are meant to level the playing field for students. They're meant to, help students learning, help them understand. We're not going to deny students something that they might need just to help make things click, or something that could help make their learning experience more valuable. So we spent a little time kind of talking about what an accommodation is and what it is not. And here is where you really see the breakdown into special education. A curriculum accommodation changes how a student gains access to instruction or demonstrates their learning. And a modification, that's when you're kind of dipping into more specially designed instruction and special ed. That changes what a student is expected to learn or demonstrate. And so you will see curriculum modifications more through a student's IEP. That may be the amount of content, it may be the pacing, maybe alternate assessments, format changes, that kind of thing. And then this is just, again, just wanted you to see the messaging to staff, that a DCAP is meant for all of our students, don't need permission to use and to provide students what's outlined in our DCAP. And this I already spoke to. I just wanted to highlight kind of how we worked on these updates, which I've already mentioned. We pulled together a smaller group to really reflect what was available to our students at every level, and then we took that out to faculty meetings to get feedback from teachers and other administrators. And then we finalized it December. It's added. It's right on the first page of our website, accessible to parents and students and teachers. And then this year, we've started our professional development half day on October 31st was focused on the DCAP at both levels, elementary and secondary. And just we did things like a DCAP scavenger hunt. We highlighted different parts of it, just trying to keep it alive and make sure that people, first of all, know what it is, know where to find it, see it as a valuable reference, and it's also sparked up some good conversations in either department meetings or PLCs, that kind of thing. But overall, it's been pretty well received. People think it's reflective of what we do and expect for all of our students in our classrooms across the district. And it's linked there. I also wanted to put, if anyone's viewing at home, go right to our website. It's on the lower right-hand side. And it's probably a 20-page document. I wasn't going to go through it page by page tonight, but happy to answer any questions related to it. We just wanted to make sure that you were aware that this is up and being talked about, and a nice resource for teachers, families, administrators as well.
Kevin?
So I'm wondering, because I'm wondering about that overlap or non-overlap between special education and accommodation. So what is an example of a type of accommodation that a student may receive? Like, is extended time on exams or something like that, a separate testing area, is the types of things like my students may get as an accommodation, but how does it work
I would
here?
say extended time would fall into probably 504 land. Now, retakes come up a lot, and I would say that test retakes were like a big topic of conversation with the DCAP, that we do want to allow retakes to a certain extent for kids to have another chance. Like if they, we talked about it in a lot of different departments, so that's kind of like a timing thing, but we felt more into the DCAP. If a student just had a bad week, failed a test, went to the teacher, advocated for themselves to give it another try. We're careful to really talk about at what point do you give a retake, so it's not just about chasing the A+ or but just to really those conversations have happened across different departments. I would say something like preferential seating might be in the DCAP, and that's fine. Yeah, some kids learn better, close to the front. Some kids, a little scoochy, they want that easy, less disruptive exit out the door for a little movement break. But maybe in an IEP, it might be student needs preferential seating away from the heater due to issues with auditory processing. You want to get so it's really charging us to get more specific with our accommodations in IEPs and 504s as well, so that we're being very clear and that they're easy to interpret as that document makes its way up, because sometimes we can be a little bit less specific in the accommodations. And so that's where it's trying to differentiate between what could just be open to all and then what's really a specific accommodation.
So who determines what accommodation is appropriate for any given student or
So
situation?
that's where, if you dig in deeper into the DCAP, you'll see these were part of the discussions that we had. We're like, okay, what is fair? Like, what sounds like, yeah, of course we would do that for any student. And so we mapped out. I don't know if I can click it up on there, but as you dig in, you can see some examples, and that was part of the conversation that we had. Where does this fall like a reasonable thing that we would offer and make available to any student? And those were the conversations that we had. And so we outlined examples of that in the DCAP. And then, might be pulling it up. Let's see if I can figure this out. Can remember exactly what page the accommodations were on. But yeah, you can see within there that we do give some examples for different supports. Kind of goes through that information, and we'll give examples of that.
Yeah. Great.
Can I try?
Thank you. Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
try to answer?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So if I'm wrong, Kara, completely shut me down.
Okay.
But the way I've always thought of it is, so if you have a class, let's say you have a classroom with 5 IEPs, 3 504s, so you obviously have a lot of accommodations that you have to make. With DCAP, it's kind of the idea that you might have one instructional strategy that you do on a consistent basis that is kind of meant to hit all the kids. And I assume that some of these are in the DCAP, but what the goal is that one strategy that you use, whether it's a particular graphic organizer or a note-taking system, whatever, the idea is that would kind of hit the vast majority of those students, that even those kids on the IEPs and 504s, that instructional model you're using is actually going to hit them. So you don't have to necessarily worry, stress out so much about meeting. I'm not saying we're not meeting the accommodations, but if that thing you're doing for everyone in the classroom can kind of work for a lot of those kids, it kind of makes it, it kind of makes it much more workable. So then when a special education teacher goes and says, oh, we have to make these modifications or accommodations, you can kind of show, well, I'm doing this. I can prove that, this is working for, 19 out of 20 or whatever. So I think it's kind of giving teachers a toolbox to kind of, make it.
For sure.
Am I?
Yeah, no, I think you hit that.
You got it.
the nail on the
That's
head there.
helpful, yeah.
Did you want to? Sorry.
No, I was wondering, Kara, if you could talk a little bit about the professional development.
Yep, sure. So what we did was we broke out, we had 2 different providers. Emily Pat is an inclusion specialist from SEAM Collaborative, so she worked with our elementary level. And what we did was we just had kind of an overview of again, what the DCAP is. It was kind of like an asynchronous, and then people got a chance to go in off on their own and just really dig into the DCAP and make sure that they were comfortable, familiar with it. They kind of, what was in here captured what they would, offer up in their classroom. And Kevin, I did just pull to one of the sections of some example accommodations under elementary. We would offer scaffolding to offer multiple entry points. We would offer multimodal learning, use of graphic organizers. So those are the kind of more vague accommodations that we would offer to all students. So we gave teachers a chance to just, again, dig in, ask questions, that sort of thing. And then Kelly Mertens is a special education consultant who's worked with us in the past on the new IEP. She came in and worked with our secondary level and just did a really nice job of just highlighting the importance of the DCAP, which is really giving every kid the best opportunity to learn as possible, that should be important to all of us. It matters. It means a lot to the experience of our students, and it was just some good discussion and breakouts, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Do you want to do it?
What's that?
In a meeting, do you want to do it?
Oh, yeah.
I could show you a DCAP strategy.
Okay.
We could do a mini lesson.
Interactive, yeah.
I think I'm joking. Thank you.
Get rubber bands for underneath.
Right. Thank you.
Right.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I had a question. Oh, no, go ahead, Alex. It's just because I'm so close to it, but no, you go ahead.
Just one within that professional development. Did you, was there any connection to like the continuum of DCAP, special education referral, I don't know if start process or SST, and then where that went from there. I think some of the importance within the DCAP and the utilization of the DCAP is to provide teachers with those interventions that they can use with students who they feel that are struggling, and not necessarily kind of maybe overqualify students or overassess students, if you will, in regards to referring them for special education. Did that take place in any of that professional development? Was there a place for it, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's been definitely a topic that we've been focused on with the work that we've done with our Tier 2 supports, our intervention. We've really been trying to make sure that we're not waiting too long to refer students to special education, but that we're also not referring them too early. That we can, that we're doing a nice job of access in gen ed, which is what all this is, using our data to support aligned interventions at 6-week intervals, progress monitoring, and then if students are not progressing, then making that referral to special education. So I think we are finding, in just my work talking with Rosie and Shannon and the elementary principals, that our referrals to special education, I think, as a result of all of this, are getting more accurate, and that we really are generally able to say that we've exhausted everything in gen ed, and the student is still not making the progress we would like to see, which I don't think was always the case. So I feel like now that we have all these systems in place, we're bringing students to the table with better information to more accurately find them eligible, either identify what the area of disability is or find them eligible. But I think I answered your question, but I feel like, so that didn't come up as much in the PD on DCAP. It was more general overview, but that is important conversation that we've been talking a lot about, just to make sure. Because we also don't want to say, oh, I'm just kind of covering kids through the DCAP and they're doing okay. And then, especially in like the smaller elementary schools, we can kind of like provide them what they need more easily. But then they get to like our bigger middle school, high school, and then they're used to having things that maybe aren't as available. So we want to make sure that we're really tracking what kids are getting, and that if it does go outside of a DCAP accommodation, that we're reflecting that.
So I think sometimes the viewing audience doesn't know what you do. You're a principal, so you're like an inside guy here. and I make this point because what you said is really important, right? And I think I think you have insight into the answer to the question that you asked, right? Which is, in a continuum of this work, right? If trying to make accommodations in a regular ed setting to do this well, can it make a difference in terms of the continuum of how we're intervening, how we're providing intervention services, and also how we're, kind of qualifying students for special education? The answer is yes, in that this has a really positive outcome on the whole school and the whole system, because for a few reasons. One, it creates kind of an inter-rater reliability, and that, if assessing how a student is doing, you have kind of a reference to go back to say, were accommodations provided in the classroom? Were interventions then provided? So if the answer is yes and yes, what worked? It gives us a kind of a backstop to go back to look at. And Kara's point about progress monitoring with data is also connected to this. So I think that this has kind of raised the level of awareness. Kara put up a list of the people that worked on this. Really, really talented group of educators worked on this. The personnel that worked on this are really, they get right at the heart of the matter. And it's about, what do students need? How do we know they needed it? How do we know they need it? And are we providing it? And how is that working, right? And what evidence are we showing that it is working, right? And so yes, I think it is a continuum. And I think to have this document and to be able to use it and reference it and refer back to it, I think is the basis for data conversations, right? The data that we're using to progress monitor. I think it's the basis for also using kind of this next level conversation, which is effective progress. Is our students making effective progress? So great question, you know, but I think sometimes when you say, is this kind of a part of like SST? I don't know that people know what SST is, or, you know, it's a kind of an intervention team when someone's not making effective progress. But yeah, so the short answer is yes. The more detailed answer, I hope I provided some context to what we're talking about here. But I'm super pleased and excited about the work that's happening here. And I'm also, we've gotten really, really positive feedback from the professional development that we've offered at the secondary level, especially around the DCAP, and what are really solid instructional practices beyond just presenting material as we always have, especially at the secondary level. So someone just stopped me earlier tonight, 5 o'clock this evening. A second high school teacher stopped me and said, you know, hey, that DCAP professional development was really great. If we could have that person back, we'd love to do it, you know? But again, this takes time and it takes work. And, you know, Kara's explanation around this started March 2020, right? Well, then we got flatlined because of COVID, and now we're back at it. And I think we're making some nice progress here.
I think it's important too, if I could just say one more thing, that you know, historically for people that have been in education, that a lot of the teachers, a lot of educators understand that DCAP is really just good teaching practices, right?
Yeah.
But it's always good, and a lot of times in different districts, it's like, oh, we know what the DCAP is. It's there. We have that document. It's there. But it's good to always refresh all the educators on what's there, what's available, because they just assume that they know. No, they don't just assume that they know, but like it's kind of that understood that they know what good teaching is.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times it's always good to have a refresher on what's in the DCAP and what could help with good teaching.
Stephen?
So when they apply an accommodation, is it per student? Can it be for the whole class? So it can cast a wider net, and sort of when we talk about sort of encapsulating more of maybe the classroom.
Yep. I think that's what we're trying to do, because again, a lot of our work through curriculum instruction is to make teachers' lives more manageable, because there's a lot of demands right now, a lot of needs, a lot going on just within a classroom. And so I think part of our work in identifying resources, scope and sequence, what are we using in curriculum, is to have some kind of built-in common language, built-in graphic organizers, built-in structures, so that we're using kind of things for the whole class, whether it's like a common graphic organizer or a common approach that, like Kevin was kind of saying, can cast a wide net and get most of the kids. And then you are going to have those students that either teachers just identify through their work with them or through collaboration with their parents that maybe like they would benefit from this. And so then Kevin also mentioned this too, just to give a toolbox of things that teachers with their own discretion are mainly saying, like, I'm going to try this, or that student might benefit from this. And then I think it's when you get to the point where I've tried all the tools in my toolbox, I've done everything through general ed curriculum that we can offer, and I see that the student isn't making the progress we would hope, then that referral would go to what Alex was talking about, kind of a pre-referral team. Let's dig in a little bit more on the student. Or parents may request a special education evaluation, and then you go that route. So in terms of the choosing of the accommodations to use, we tried to capture a lot of like what we've been talking about should be happening in classrooms and available, and things that are just naturally within our curriculum resources as access points for students, so that it's not like, I mean, that's an overwhelming task. You've got 25 kids in front of you. All right, that one needs this accommodation and that one needs that. You want to be more efficient in your teaching as well, so that you're giving access to as many kids as possible, but then making slight adjustments as needed. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. Okay. And that is an all-star list of educators in our...
It's a great group. Yeah, it was a really great group. And I think, I want to say Victor and Will were part of the, I think, original kind of bringing to light that we needed a DCAP revival because ours wasn't really capturing. And that's why kind of what Rosie was saying about the program review too, these are things that we should keep alive, keep reflecting on, looking at, does this match who we are, in the 25-26 school year, in the 26-27 school year, because things change. And that's what's great about Google Docs is we can just update it as we need to. It's not an old PDF that is in a binder on a shelf somewhere. So we have it on our website. We can update as we need to, and that's our goal, to just keep coming back to this where we can.
Yeah. And it's also really, it's hard too, because you can do PD on, let's say, a really good accommodation that could be used universally within, let's say, mathematics, 6 through 8. But then you also get individual teachers who might have different skill sets, who might have always used a particular instructional model that wouldn't go with that. So I think a lot of having DCAT be successful is, basically, having PD that actually allows, well, 2 things really. One, that kind of allows teachers to kind of pick the thing that would work for them with an accommodation that would work for students. But also, I think one thing that's really understudied is really just looking at student feedback. Like, you can pretty quickly get what's working, like really quickly. I think within 2-3 months, you can, if you're doing a particular accommodation, like any teacher will get good feedback being like, oh, this is working, for the vast majority, not everyone, but for the vast majority, including kids, that are getting traditional modifications. So I think the student feedback is like a big thing that I think we honestly kind of ignore. Like, a lot of it's like anecdotal. I think they're getting it, but that's something.
Yeah, and especially as they get older, they're able to advocate for themselves in a more effective way, because the students really know themselves best, and because Kevin, you're a high school teacher, you're probably able to have better conversations with students, like, hey, what's working for you? Does this, and that's where you get the best information for sure.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. I can just finish up with comments and updates, if that's okay. So just some comments. So this past Saturday was town meeting, and we want to thank Debbie Menon, who's president of the Dolbear PTO, and the student council members that came early on Saturday morning and sold coffee and donuts. And all the proceeds from their coffee and donuts sale were donated to the Wakefield Food Pantry, which is really timely because they need these donations with kind of the changes and benefits that are happening with SNAP. And so we know that the Wakefield Food Pantry has really been working overtime trying to support students and families. So, we want to thank both the food pantry, but we also, again, want to thank the student council from Dolbear. The kids were adorable. They were just fantastic. They'd sell you a cup of coffee and say, do you want cream? Do you want sugar? They like follow you around with cream and sugar. How about now? Yet? No, still no. They were great. And they were just so proud of the work that they were doing, and they were just so proud about the idea of, just really working to try to help someone else as a service. But the kids did fantastic, and we want to thank them. We also want to thank Denise Casey, our new town administrator, who asked if a PTO would be interested in doing this. And so, credit goes to her as well. So again, special thanks to the Dolbear PTO, Debbie Menon, and Student Council.
I especially liked how after the meeting they went down and sort of, the word I want to say is fleece the crowd. It was much more tender than that. But they went down with their sign and was sure to let everyone know that they
can still donate.
They had Venmo, which was brilliant.
Yes.
Really well done.
They raised quite a bit of money. They raised over $700.
$700 cash, and then they were going back to find the Venmo balance, which may have also been very good.
And so they weren't fooling around, which is great. But again, very timely. Yeah. And the notion that the kids wanted to donate it to the food pantry, I thought was heart-filling, right? It was just great. So brilliant. Kudos to them. Just keeping everyone in the loop on kind of commitments, calendar commitments. So we have November 20th, but before November 20th, this Friday again, we have the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Staff will be wearing purple again to kind of participate in that day. So that's something that we're looking forward to. November 20th, we have pre-K and elementary conferences, right? As well as conferences at WMHS, the evening conferences. November 21st, we have an early release for pre-K and high school conferences. The 25th is the Thanksgiving game at Fenway Park. If you haven't gotten tickets yet, you need to reach out to our athletic director. I think that's going to be a great take. And school committee members are all invited, are passing that invitation on from our athletic director. If you're interested in attending, you just need to kind of let us know, and Mike Murphy can help us out with that. Other kind of commitments, and November 26th will be our early release for Thanksgiving recess, right? And then we're off the 27th and 28th, right? So no school those days. Just kind of looking ahead, time is going quickly, but that's kind of where we're at. First quarter is coming to a close. We are going to be looking very closely at attendance for students, as well as grades, to see how students are progressing, and also how we might intervene to help both with attendance, tardiness, and any kind of academic support that we might be able to provide to help students kind of stay on track. We have something different that we're doing this year, and all of our principals are kind of looking at attendance weekly to make sure that we're communicating well and we're kind of intervening as we need to, and really reaching out to parents. We know, as always, that there are times when absences are excused, and so I think principals have been really good at kind of reaching out and talking to parents about just how can we help, right? And even when absences are excused, if students are missing large kind of chunks of work, sometimes we need to even talk about that to say, like, okay, your absences are excused, no question there. However, based on the work that they've missed, we need to kind of create a plan to make sure that they're staying on track to make progress. So those are things that are happening. We're also doing learning walks this year with our curriculum coordinators and department heads. And that's something that has been, I would argue, it's been terrific. We were in English last week, and tomorrow we have history.
And visual performing arts. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
And that has been really helpful, and I think it's great for us to get in and see students and teaching and learning. It's also an amazing way for us to provide the recognition that is deserved for some of the just such exceptional teaching that's happening in so many of our classes. So more to follow on that. We'll be providing more information and updates there. But that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
And then the high school theater students have performances tomorrow and Friday.
Thank you for
Tomorrow is at
reminding
4
me.
at the high school theater, and then Friday is 6, right?
Thank you so much, Pete, for saying that. Will would have been disappointed if I missed that. Thank you.
Great. Any
That's
other
it for me.
questions? Okay. Next item on the agenda are my comments. So this kind of segues with what Dr. Lyons was saying, but we're already a quarter of the way through the year. Term 1 is pretty much closing now. So that means we're 25% through the school year. And I think that, I know we all go through the same cycles, like whatever job we're in, but the school year is definitely a weird beast. Term 2, I know on the high school level, there's just so many breaks. We have Thanksgiving, we have holiday break, and then we have mid-year exams. So I think that I always visualize first term being high energy, everyone's hitting the ground running. Term 2 is where you just get all these breaks that are kind of getting in the way of that. So just, want to look forward, keep focused, and yeah. I also want to give an update on our negotiations with the WEA. So last spring, we made a motion and voted to go enter into negotiations with the WEA in the hopes of coming up with a new schedule for the high school. And this negotiation basically revolves around 3 separate buckets or 3 separate categories. One is the start time, and the motion that we made last spring was to negotiate a start time that would start at the high school at 8:15. And the proposal that we gave to the WEA was a start time of 8:15 as we made that vote last spring. We're also going to be, in negotiations, we're also going to be talking about the bell schedule because there's going to be a revised schedule that's within the start time and end time of the school day that's in the contract. And then also the logistics of the move, because obviously they're going to be moving in the middle of the school year because the high school is going to be online and ready in the middle of the year. So we had our first negotiations last week. I think it was on Wednesday, and I thought negotiations went well. We made similar arguments that were made last year about the science of sleep, showing quality of sleep improving with a later shift at bedtime, pointing towards a later start time being beneficial for high school students. We definitely discussed issues with moving towards a later start time, specifically logistics of transportation, being, of, concern for everyone involved, both the school side, parents, community members. So yeah, just to be clear, this proposal for the late start time is just for high school. There's no change in the start time for the middle school or elementary schools. And I thought it was a fruitful conversation. So, basically we gave our arguments and the union gave, their arguments, and they are going to give a counter proposal in the next session. So, yep, keep everyone updated on that. And that is all I have for my comments.
Tri-board?
Sure, I can talk about Tri-Board. We have the Tri-Board meeting, which is next Monday night. That's going to be at the Galvin stage. If anyone wants to go, you are welcome to come to the Galvin Auditorium and watch the exciting presentation that will be made by the three major boards in town. It's Finance Committee, School Committee, and the Town Council. So basically what's going to happen is it's going to be a financial presentation, which is looking at the past, basically the financial forecast of the future, but also looking at what's happened in the past. And the Tri-Board meeting is a good start for the budget season. It's a very transparent way of looking at the budget process at the beginning of the year. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, the public is welcome. I forgot, my phone's kind of out, so was it 6 o'clock start? 6 o'clock start, Galvin Auditorium. Hopefully we'll be on stage. Yeah. Sorry, any other questions? Okay. Next item on the agenda, subcommittee reports. Finance and facilities. Tom is not here.
I don't think we met since the last time, but we do have a December meeting on the books. Do you remember what the day was? It's a Friday, but I don't remember which day it
I think
is.
it's the first Friday of December, but I don't remember for sure.
Wasn't there one on November 21?
Should there be?
I just looked up the whole minute.
There probably is. I know we canceled one in November, but it was the earlier one that we canceled in
I
November?
don't remember, and I don't have the facts.
Looks like that's on Doug's calendar. November 21st.
Yeah, looks like Friday, November 21st, 8 to 9 a.m. at central office.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. Labor and personnel, Kevin.
Sure. So the chair did a great job kind of describing our last meeting with the WEA. We have 3 more in the books that at least are scheduled, and that is the 19th of November, and then we have 2 in December, December 3rd, December 17th. We'll also, as a subcommittee, be meeting. I'll be working with you, Michelle, to post a meeting on the 24th, and we're going to start kind of discussing Superintendent Lyons' contract, and a possible extension of that. So that'll be on the 24th that we'll meet in executive session. That's it.
Great, thank you. Student services, Stephen.
Student services, we have not met since our last meeting. We really just need to get a meeting on the books. So more to come.
Okay, thank you. Policy and communications, Melissa.
So we have met and we have a few motions. Our last meeting, we finalized the policies in Book L. So we'd like to put those on the table tonight. So if you don't mind, can we take things out of order and do the motion for policy Book L and put that on the table?
Absolutely.
And then we can vote on the policies we put on the table 2 weeks ago. So these are pretty straightforward. They're how the policy Book L deals with how we interact with basically other schools and other agencies in the state. So really straightforward. There's 4 policies, one to deal with other educational agencies, one to deal with other schools and other school districts, one to deal with non-public schools, which is virtually unchanged from when we voted on this and last year. The one note there and why it's highlighted is we added a link to the forms that non-public schools, that non-public schools have to file with the state, so they have easy access to it, and so people can see what information is needed. And then student teaching and internships. So is there a motion to lay these on the table?
Will the school committee lay section L, policies LA, LB, LBC, and LDA on the table for consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on December 9th, 2025?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Vote carries unanimously. And I think we have another motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa.
I was going to say, did anyone have any questions about the policies that we put on the table last time? And I wanted to just clarify if this is like an omnibus kind of motion, or if we should take them separately in case people have issues with anything.
I'm good with the omnibus.
I am too. I just want to make sure before we do it.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Did I ask a question last time?
You did about.
Yeah, but
Is it the same question?
I think it is.
Okay.
Question. So should we make the motion to approve and then
and then
open up
have the
for
conversation?
discussion?
Yeah, sure.
Want to do that?
Okay. Will the school committee approve policies IKFE, competency determinations, CTE, career and technical education, middle school pathway exploration policy, ECAB, access to buildings and grounds, and EFBA, school food and nutrition, meal modifications as presented?
Second.
I'd like to make a quick note. I don't know if it should be an actual change, but it's actually the middle school career and technical education pathway exploration policy is actually coded IJ-E.
I think we can just do that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Pete, you second that?
I did. You had a question then.
Well, right. So, are there any for discussion? Does anyone have any questions? I do. So it's the I probably asked this. You probably answered it, but I have short-term memory or
That's okay,
long-term
happy to answer it
memory
again.
loss. So for the competency determination, this is IKFE.
Yep.
Where on that front page of the policy, when it says a determination of competency shall include 2 accomplishments, and then number 1, it says demonstrating a mastery of skills. And then underneath it says to show mastery, a student must successfully complete in accordance with the grading policy, and then it's an or, right? So it's either the final assessment, which I assume would be final exam or whatever, or a capstone portfolio, or an equivalent measure identifying the district CD policy. I think my question is number 3, like what constitutes a quote-unquote equivalent measure?
So I think what I answered last week and I answer again this time is that this is purposely vague because as a policy, I feel like we should be able to use the policy as a guideline to figure out what that competency determination is, and that as school committee members, we might not be the most informed as to doing that, and that teachers and the administration are much better equipped to determine what that is.
Okay.
And like I noted this a couple of weeks ago too, is that, it's not a gotcha policy. Most of the coursework should be done by kids' second year in high school. So there's room to figure out what's needed. And other than that, and the listing of exactly what those classes are at Wakefield Memorial High School, this is not any different than what we passed in the spring. And knowing that we will also probably have to update this again sometime soon, that there's continued guidelines coming. But just try and stay as current as we can, and then if we need to change it again, we'll change it again.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? See no opposition. This motion passes. Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Did you have it? You can motion to agenda. You can make a motion to make an amendment.
Nope, I do not want to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, but thanks for the offer.
All right.
Here we go. Are there any policy communications, we good?
Yeah, so we're continuing to work on Book B, which is board governance, which is thornier than I expected it to be. I went into it thinking, oh, this is fine. And then I'm a little behind on it, but hopefully we'll have that the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
This is like tough stuff. Do we have any liaison reports?
Just a couple of things from the Environmental Sustainability Committee. First off, I'd say that they had another successful pumpkin collection. I think we beat records again, which is where Black Earth comes and collects sort of pumpkins that have been dropped off at the middle schools to be composted if people didn't have other places to put their pumpkins, like their backyard for the squirrels. But so that was great. That's a great program. One thing that's come up in some conversations around ESC recently is the idea of food rescue in our schools. I think previously in conversations around food rescue, the conversation at the time had centered a little bit around minimalizing food waste. And I think that conversation in today's climate has somewhat shifted to food availability. And so it's not just the wastefulness of throwing something away, but it's that someone in our community or a neighboring community could actually use that thing, whether that's an apple or a packet of applesauce or a package of crackers. Like, it should find a better home than the bin if there are people that are in need. So in conversations, it seems like that sort of work needs to be, it's most successful if it's championed by sort of caregiver volunteers at the elementary level at least, but they do need some partnership with some, maybe some district resources. I think there are, whether that's through facilities or whatnot, I think they could use some help in that space. Just at least clearly defining sort of, times and roles and that sort of thing. I think the question gets a little bit trickier when you get into the Galvin and the high school. I think there it sort of shifts into almost a more student-driven endeavor. And so if there are sort of youth council, members listening and they're interested in taking on sort of a pilot project, this would be a great space for them. So we had that conversation. That conversation led into, oddly enough, youth council. There are open seats for youth council for 8th graders right now. 8th graders are eligible to be on youth council. There are 3 seats for 8th graders, and no one is currently sitting in them. So if anybody is watching and has an 8th grader that would like to be involved in sort of their community and give back some of their time to maybe make their neighborhood or their town a little bit better, feel free to reach out to the youth council. They could also reach out to town councilors. They can get them in touch with, I think it's Liz Parsons, who currently is the advisor for that.
And there's a meeting next Thursday at 4. Great. If people are interested.
And I just think it's a little sad that there's empty seats. So 8th grade is filled with, I know, a lot of great kids. I know some of them sort of personally, and so I think it's just lack of knowledge that they don't know that there are opportunities available there. So hopefully somebody hears. I don't want to go knocking on anyone's door personally, but I'm not opposed to it. So yeah, so I think that's all I have. That seemed like a lot, but that all kind of started as one conversation and wove right into the other.
So youth council did meet, and they're talking about trying to raise profiles of the members and try and get some things out on social media, talking about what the members are doing. They're hoping to present at town meeting in the spring with some proposals. And they're working on their Snow Angel program again. So if people are interested in volunteering for the Snow Angel program, definitely reach out to someone on youth council. And they're trying to address food insecurity issues, particularly at the high school, and trying to come up with new ways to address that.
Great.
Talking about working with the food pantry in particular.
Cool. Thank you. All right, any others? All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, future dates and agenda items. So we have canceled our next school committee meeting for November 25th because of the football game that's going to be at Fenway Park. And we definitely have a majority of school committee members that want to go to the game, which means we definitely would not have a quorum. So we are going to cancel that meeting. And I agree that if you haven't gotten tickets, contact Mike Murphy or Dr. Lyons for getting tickets. So our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, December 9th, which is about a month away. So yeah. If there's any agenda items, Stephen.
I don't know if it might be, if everyone's going to attend Tri-Board, it might be good enough to do it there anyway. But I was wondering if we wanted to invite our new town administrator to a meeting just for sort of an introduction and say.
Good idea. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Could do that.
December?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
I can reach out if you like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
Should we do a kind of presentation for her?
Yeah, we can.
I'll come up with something. Sounds good.
You can show her a decaf.
Decaf?
Oh yeah. Oh, I got it.
How that could apply to the budget?
Absolutely.
We were also, just to keep in mind too, trying to organize school tours too, that we were gonna invite. So yeah, just that'll be another opportunity too.
Yeah.
We're collecting dates right now,
Yeah.
trying to work that out.
Yeah. This will be so much more fun though than school tours. Sarcasm. All right. So school committee comments. Does anyone have any comments? Yeah.
Attended the Veterans Assembly yesterday, where I heard Miss Casey, our new town administrator, speak. Is incredibly well spoken. Give a very nice message, thanking the veterans in the audience and abroad, for all that they've sacrificed. I want to give a shout out to our treble choir and the it's not the orchestra. Wind ensemble. Both musical performances from both groups were just stunning, along with taps by the two fantastic trumpet players. So a thank you to Mr. Bankert, Ms. Morell, and Mr. Cataldo for sort of bringing their students to the event and just sort of serenading the entire audience. They definitely. Music was a highlight of sort of, it kept being brought up during the program, and they really sort of highlighted how successful the music program is in our district. So just a thank you to them.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I have one more.
Oh,
Just a last. Shout out again for Science Olympiad Trivia is next Friday, the 21st. At I believe 7 p.m. At the Wakefield Elks, I think. And you can get your tickets by emailing Mr. Chris Gorski.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, just really brief. Just wanted to wish Chief Sullivan well in his retirement. Longtime chief here for the fire department, and certainly a family that's been engaged, I think, in the field of fire prevention and response for generations. So I think of him most as he was very active. I know back in the day in some of the PTOs, particularly the Dahlberg PTO. So he's been a good collaborator with the schools, and just want to wish him well on a well-deserved retirement.
Thank you. Any other comments? Melissa?
I just wanted to mention that also on Monday, the 17th, also at 6 p.m., the fall sports is having their first fall sports. It's not big, but it's
It's an award
ceremony.
Yeah, fall sports award ceremony. So we're going to break it up by season.
Yeah.
Something
And this
different.
is the first time we're doing
First time.
something like that.
First time.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that idea. Some schools do that.
That was it. Everyone else got
Any
everything.
comments? All right. Last item, motion to adjourn.
Move the school committee adjourn its meeting of Wednesday, November 12th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, motion passes. Thank you and good night.